Drop one of those gold coins in there.
Welcome into Sports Millions over here on SportsGrid. I'm Joe Madden, joined today by Tom Vecchio. Happy holidays, Tom. How's your week been going so far?
I'm doing great. I hope you are doing awesome as well. We have a huge week of NFL action. Obviously starts on Christmas with 2 games. We got Thursday, we got Saturday, we got Sunday. We got to get to it. There's a ton to go through.
There is so much to go through, and I'm excited for this game on a Thursday. The Seattle Seahawks with so much to play for here, taking on the Chicago Bears. Now, we know the Chicago Bears have been in a downward spiral. That defense has been falling apart. But do you think this team is out here looking to play a spoiler on Thursday?
I would say so. And I would say there's some encouraging signs for the Bears. I know that may seem like a bit of a hot take, but Caleb Williams has been awesome, especially over the past few weeks. They have a lot of problems. There's no doubt about that. But there are some encouraging signs when it comes to Caleb Williams. So I think that's where we can start with things. And as you said, this is a hugely important game for the Seahawks for where they sit for potentially winning the division. The Rams are playing the Cardinals on Sunday, and then the Rams and the Seahawks play each other in Week 18. So the Seahawks need to come in and take care of business against a Bears team, like you said, that is reeling over the past, not just few weeks, but really for the majority of the season. So has to start with the Seahawks operating rationally and normally, but I do think we will see some production from the Bears side of things.
Definitely. I definitely think there's a lot that we can look at for the Chicago Bears. But let's jump on the Seattle Seahawks first. Let's start looking at what we're expecting out of Geno Smith. We've got a lot of higher or lower picks that we can look at for him here. Do you think he's going to be able to attack the secondary here of the Chicago Bears? We know this secondary has been having issues. He has a passing yard of 252.5 to the higher or lower. Geno Smith is so strong at throwing that ball into nice, tight pockets, but he does throw those interceptions. I think we can see a game in which, as long as the Bears stay competitive, we can see Geno Smith go higher than 252.5. What are you thinking on his passing yards?
Yeah, totally agree with everything you said about Geno. The passing yards will be there. The interceptions may be there as well, but I think this is what we should be seeing from them. Kenneth Walker came back last week, didn't do a whole lot. Granted, it was against the Vikings defense. That's a bit of a different story compared to the Bears defense that they'll be facing. At the end of the day, Geno throwing the ball at a good volume to his very strong receivers, I think, is the path to them winning. Now, we have to remember that we only can pick the one player from each team when we're locking in when it comes to the multiplier. So I think Geno is fine, but he's not my favorite Seahawk.
Okay, so if he's not your favorite Seahawk, where are you going with your favorite Seahawk in this game?
It's got to be JSN. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the second-year receiver for them, has been absolutely awesome, especially over the past few weeks. Let's go higher than 70.5 receiving yards. We're seeing 95, 83, 82, 74, 77, 110, 180, and 69 receiving yards from him in this last stretch of games. He is the path to them succeeding in the air. DK Metcalf has been a little bit slow, whether it's going to be Charbonnet in a split backfield with Kenneth Walker, whatever that might be. JSN is the best option that the Seahawks have, and how bad the Bears defense has been in recent weeks, getting torched by Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown last week. The week before that, it was Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. Pass the ball, Seahawks come away with the win, and it sets us up for an awesome Week 18 matchup versus the Rams for potentially the division title.
I love where you're going with that. I don't think the Bears will have an answer for him here, and he should be able to get open and get that separation. And with Geno's ability to throw that ball nice and deep, I think that is a great way to go on the higher on 69.5. What are your thoughts here on Tyler Lockett? I know I was high on Tyler Lockett to get those red zone targets last week. He wasn't able to get them. He did have one reception for 22 yards. He has a receiving yard number coming in at 19.5. It seems slightly low. If the defense of the Bears are focusing on other players, could Tyler Lockett be a sneaky player to get separation out there and have that long reception?
He certainly could. The question becomes is, how many of these players will be hitting their hires, right? Will it be DK and JSN and Lockett and Kenneth Walker and Noah Fant? Like, how many are they going to be hitting? So I I may side with the other players ahead of Lockett. I actually would put Noah Fant ahead of him. And that's just, again, this may be personal preference. Someone may be higher on Lockett compared to, other players in the offense. But I would put JSN and DK, especially ahead of Tyler Lockett. And then a bit of running game. So I think there are times that Lockett just naturally gets pushed out of the offense overall. So he's a maybe for me.
So, Tom, are you telling me if you had to have a Scrooge bet out there in this game, a Scrooge pick, would you be taking Tyler Lockett lower than 19.5 receiving yards?
It might be. That's what it comes down to. It might just the way things pan out for the Seattle offense. I think I would trust other players steps ahead of him, and he may be the one left behind or a Scrooge bet, as you said.
Okay, it's the holidays. Everyone likes a couple of things that are a little Scroogey this time of year. What are your hopes here for Jason Myers, the kicker? We have kicking points in here, higher or lower, field goals as well. I think I feel a little bit more comfortable with the kicking points because I do think here we're going to see the Seattle Seahawks be able to convert those touchdowns. The kicking points coming in at 6.5 to the higher. I do like Geno Smith better, so I will be locking him in, but I don't hate here Jason Myers.
Yeah, 6.5. We'd be talking about 2 field goals and 1 extra point, or some combination of an extra point and 1 field goal, 4 extra points from him. So when we're looking at that, we got to determine how many touchdowns they're going to have, and that would lead to how many kicking points and or field goals. So I would personally side with the field goals just because it's a little bit lower. He only needs 2 of those compared to needing 3 when it comes to kicking points. So it's kind of just like pick your poison, chocolate or vanilla, whatever your preference is essentially.
Tom, what are you thinking for the overall game plan? Do you think this is a higher scoring game? Because I do think the Bears will help push the Seattle Seahawks into a higher scoring game in this one. I think we're going to see success. So that's why I'm leaning on the kicking points higher than the 6.5. Are you still looking at a higher scoring game?
I actually am, despite it being a Thursday game, a short week. The Seattle defense has been terrible. Absolutely terrible over the past 2 weeks, especially at stopping the pass. So Sam Darnold passing for 246, even Jordan Love in a slower game a couple Sundays ago, 229 with the 2 touchdowns, even Kyler Murray going for 259 and 2 touchdowns. So I'm expecting some points, and I think Caleb Williams will be the answer on the Bears side of things.
Well, let's talk about Caleb Williams. What do you expect out of Caleb Williams out here? Do you think he's going to be able to make those long passes down the field? Is that what you're expecting out of them? Because we have seen Seattle defensively be vulnerable to that deep ball.
Yeah, and when we have so many options on the Bears offense, right? We have Keenan Allen, we can go to DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift. At the end of the day, not everyone's going to be piling up the yards. So if we expect them to move the ball, but we're not exactly sure who it's going to be. It's going to be Keenan Allen. As we saw over the past few weeks, it's going to be DJ Moore. If we're not sure, we can just take the easy route and that's side with Caleb Williams. He's sitting at 214.5. So I want to go to the higher on that. And we're looking at some really, really solid games from him over this last stretch. Yeah, we saw the 191 and the 134, against the 49ers and the Vikings, but we saw 334 last week against the Lions, 256 against the Lions on Thanksgiving, 340 versus the Vikings prior to that, 231 versus the Packers. I think Caleb Williams gets out there and slings the ball. Like I said, the Bears have a lot of issues. I don't think Caleb Williams is one of them.
Yeah, I don't think Caleb Williams is either, as long as that offensive line gives him the time. And like you said, Seattle's defense not posing that much of resistance. We're looking at a rushing yard of number 27.5 to the higher for Caleb Williams or the lower. He also has pass completions of 20.5, 32.5 for his passing attempts. I do think he's going to be able to use his legs out there. I like his ability to scramble. The rushing yards of 27.5, I'm willing to lock into the higher here for Caleb Williams.
I am too. 34, 27, 39, 33 over his last stretch. He gets pushed out of the pocket all the time. He should have those chances to move the ball on the ground.
Okay, you guys, we're going to be back in the next couple of minutes, just coming up against a break. Don't go anywhere over here on the Sports Grid on Sports Millions.
one of those goals going.
Welcome back into Sports Millions here on the grid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. Enjoy Sports Millions Pick'Ems, but hate making picks yourself? Well, Sports Millions has you covered. Head on over and play Sports Millions Blitz'Em right now and let your computer do the work. Go to sportsmillions.com/Blitz'Em and be able to win big prizes without having to make a single pick yourself. That's sportsmillions.com/Pick'Em. Okay, Tom, we were talking the Seattle Seahawks and the Chicago Bears, both of us thinking Geno Smith's going to be able to move that ball. We're liking a lot of players over there. We're also looking at Caleb Williams to find success. Now, we talked about his picks that we can go higher and lower on, but who else do you want to look at here for the Chicago Bears?
It comes down to who you trust most in the passing offense. Keenan Allen has been great over the past few weeks. I mean, 141 this past Sunday against the Lions. We saw him with 82 against the Vikings a couple Monday nights ago. You can say the same thing about DJ Moore. The thing I like most about DJ Moore, and again, this is kind of a preference thing. Do you prefer Keenan Allen? You know, Joe, as a Chargers fan, you may have a preference going back to Keenan Allen, but DJ Moore, I think, is super solid, and it may not necessarily be his yards. His receptions are super solid. 7 last week versus the Lions. We saw 8 versus the Vikings. And, you mentioned it. Will the offensive line give Caleb Williams time? That's kind of been the story since week 1, where he often gets pushed out of the pocket. So when he does get pushed out of the pocket, the scrambling yards can absolutely be there for Caleb Williams. But also really quick, easy completions to DJ Moore has kind of been a theme this year. So I would side with the yards on Keenan Allen if you're looking there. We know those deep balls can get there, 15, 20 yards at a time. But also receptions for DJ Moore. Really simple for Caleb Williams just to get the ball out of his hands, prevent interceptions, pick up first downs. So DJ Moore higher than 5.5 receptions, totally on the board this week.
I like where you're going with both of those guys. And you're right, I'm a little biased here with Keenan Allen. I sure do miss him over there with the Chargers, but I do think he's going to get those receptions. Caleb Williams knows he's got those steady hands, those veteran hands that never, well, I can't say never because now it's going to happen in this game, really drop the ball in those clutch situations. But DJ Moore has been a great weapon out there for him as well. What about Odunze out here? We know Odunze is great with those deep balls. He has those hands that can get it. I think he should be able to break separation out here with Seattle. Odunze coming in with a receiving yard number of 40.5. I like that to the higher, Tom.
I do too. I do, but I would put him behind Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Really, like both things can be true. I think it's his numbers fine, his usage in the offense is fine. Especially the targets that we've seen in recent games: 7, 7, 5, 6, 10, and 10. So the targets are absolutely fine for Odunze. I think he's fine. I think the number going higher is fine, but it's also rational to say I would prefer Keenan Allen and DJ Moore ahead of him, if all that makes sense. Like, I think Caleb Williams will have a strong game. It's possible that I will also side with Odunze, but it's after Keenan Allen and DJ Moore.
No, I completely hear you there. If Seattle's defense really does put all of their weight on those guys, could we see Cole Kmet getting open here? He has such a low number here, 17.5 receiving yards. I can see him going higher than that, but I'm not sure if I really want to lock that one in.
I'm on board with that. Again, it's like how much offense are we going to be seeing from the Bears? Because if Cole Kmet's hitting, higher than 17.5, is everyone else hitting higher than 17 and higher than their numbers? Odunze and Keenan Allen and DJ Moore? Because if they all are, that means Caleb Williams having an awesome game, right? That's what it really comes down to. If everyone's going over their numbers and hitting hires, Caleb Williams is having it. So let's just take the easier path, and that's going Caleb Williams higher than 214.5. I think that's just like a far more straightforward route than trying to pinpoint one exact receiver.
Okay, Tom, we've got to lock in one player from each of these teams. For myself, I'm going to go with Geno Smith. I'm going to take him higher than the 252.5 passing yards. And then my bias there with Keenan Allen. I do think Keenan Allen is in for a big day. He's healthy right now. I will take him higher than 59.5 receiving. What about yourself?
That's starting off with JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba for Seattle. I don't want to say like I'm a JSN truther where I think he's just a phenomenal talent. Broke 1,000 yards this season. I think that's what we'll see from him for the large part, not just this year, but moving throughout the rest of his career. 70.5 receiving yards, going higher than that. And again, I am of the belief that Caleb Williams is not the issue when it comes to the Bears. You can call it their play calling. Their defense obviously isn't good in any capacity, but when we're seeing him throw multiple touchdowns and pushing towards 300 yards in some of these recent games, and how bad the Seattle defense has been getting torched by Sam Darnold, getting torched by Jordan Love, Jared Goff, whatever it might be in recent games or throughout the entire season, I will always side with a quarterback passing the ball. Caleb Williams higher than 14.5, so that's where we can lock those two in.
Okay, I love where you're going with those. We've got to jump into some Saturday action here with the LA Chargers. 9-6 LA Chargers team taking on the New England Patriots, a Patriots team that's absolutely struggled this season, only recording 3 wins. What are your thoughts for this one? Is this an easy said and done? Huge win here for the Chargers.
I think the Chargers win this game. They are the better team. Everyone will agree that the Chargers are better than the Patriots. However, the Patriots, they showed some life last week against Buffalo. Huge underdogs. They kept that game close for the majority of the game. Obviously, Buffalo comes away with the win. I think the Chargers win this game. How much production we see from them across the board, that's a different story. It's also important to note that they opened up the practice window for J.K. Dobbins, who is on IR. Whether or not he's activated yet officially is yet to be seen. But if he is not activated, we have seen very, very limited production from Gus Edwards and Kamani Vidal. So if Dobbins is not activated, it's going to be a Justin Herbert game. If Dobbins is activated, that's a different story, which we can get into coming up against a break.
Yeah, I really do hear what you're saying. To have Dobbins back in this lineup would be fantastic. We know the Patriots do struggle against that run game. We've seen Justin Herbert actually moving with his legs, Tom. So there's a lot that we can break down in the next segment here. We've got tons of players we can look at on both sides of the ball. And you guys, we will have our picks higher or lower, one for each of these teams. Tom, at the end of the day, will this be a higher or lower scoring game in your opinion?
Lower scoring, I don't know. I could see 21-17, 21-14 kind of there. I don't think we're going to see a ton of points.
I am completely with you. Okay, you guys, we are coming up against that break. When we get back, we'll give you our higher and lower picks between the Chargers and the Patriots. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Stay tuned here on Sports Millions on the Grid.
One of those gold coins.
Welcome into Sports Millions here on the Grid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. Tom, how's your holidays been treating you?
I am doing great. They have been going well. I hope the same thing for you. We're going to get back to the Patriots taking on the Chargers. But first, check out the Sports Millions Social Casino featuring classics, slots, and brand new game concepts. The Social Casino features the opportunity to win large sweepstake coins, and the games are always free to enter. Go play now at sportsmillions.com/social-casino. That's sportsmillions.com/social-casino. Joe, as you mentioned, this is a huge game for the Chargers in terms of their playoff seeding, securing their playoff spot. I think we're both on board that we're going to see a modest amount of scoring in this one. It's not going to be a high-flying 30 to 34, 31 type of game. I think you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with it. I really do think we're going to see a low-scoring, grind-them-out sort of game where the Chargers maybe go up in this first half and then just hold onto the lead, try to run out the clock here. Do you agree with that?
It has to be. That's what it comes down to. It is important to note that, again, we're waiting on the official news of whether or not J.K. Dobbins will be activated off of IR. His practice window is open, so there are a limited amount of players that we have available to sort through. I think trusting Herbert is the easy answer, but I think Ladd McConkey should be the number one option that we like really hone in on if we're expecting some movement of the ball from the Chargers.
Yeah, looking at Ladd, he's been so strong out there this season. It's great to see what he's been able to do since joining the Chargers. We're looking at him coming in for a higher or lower of 70.5 receiving yards, but we also have a higher or lower of 70.5 receiving and rushing yards. They really don't use him in that rushing area. Those numbers are sitting both the same, but when you have those two options, would you rather just lock in the second? Because if they end up somehow using him that way, you're going to get those yardage.
Yeah, I don't see why they're the same. But if you have the option, why not? That's what it comes down to. Like a simple jet sweep, like you said, they're not using him, in that capacity. But it's just the easier route to go because and even if they do a screen that is he throws backward, that would technically count as a lateral, right? And it would be considered rushing yards, even though it's not necessarily a rushing play. So just take the rushing plus receiving always.
Yeah, so 70.5 is your number for that one, locking in more or less the higher we are looking at. But what are you hoping here for Justin Herbert? We have three different lines we can look at here for Justin Herbert. Those picks coming in at 223.5 for his passing yards, 13.5 for his rushing yards, and 1.5 passing touchdowns. Now, I'm a little concerned about the passing touchdowns here, even though I don't think the defense of the Patriots is going to put that much resistance on Justin Herbert. I just think this is going to turn into a run game, especially if Dobbins is out there. So which one of these would you prefer to lock in?
The passing touchdowns, like you said, not sure if he can get there. And again, it's not like a fault of his own. It's just we may not see him in a spot where he needs to be passing in a super high volume. So the rushing yards are interesting. We have seen him, start to pick up a lot of rushing yards, especially in the middle portion, the later portion of the season. Whether or not he's actually dealing with this high ankle sprain, whatever it might be, that's a different story. So the passing touchdowns, I think, has to be last on the list for me. It comes down to, do I prefer the passing yards or the rushing yards from Justin Herbert? And that's the thing I'm having a little bit of an issue with. And it may get to the point where if I can't decide, and we only can have one Chargers player, it may just come down to just trusting Ladd McConkey, who's been their best offensive option, especially if Dobbins continues to be out. If I can't decide on Herbert, I'm just going to Ladd McConkey.
Okay, I hear you on that. Ladd has been so strong. I do think those rushing yards come in for Justin Herbert. I think we see him scramble in a couple of these situations. I'm willing to lock him in at higher than 13.5 rushing yards. We know the Patriots here, this team allows right on 130 rushing yards per game. So I do think that is going to be the game plan here for the Chargers. Who else are you wanting to lock in?
I would go to Hunter Henry on the other side, 39.5. There are a lot of options when it comes to the Patriots, whether Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper. Like at the end of the day, they a lot of options that are all okay. I think Hunter Henry is the best among those options, so higher than 39.5 for him.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I love Hunter Henry here. Drake May, those short passes off to him should go higher than 39.5. So I will lock in Justin Herbert higher than 13.5 rushing yards. Hunter Henry higher than 39.5 receiving. Which two are you locking in, Tom?
I'm siding with Henry, but I'm going to go with Ladd McConkey higher than 70.5. I'm not sure what we're getting out of the passing game. We don't know if Dobbins is going to be back. I'll side with Ladd McConkey. Lock that in.
Okay, I love where we're going for these Saturday games. You guys, all the best. Thanks so much for joining us over here on Sports Millions on the Grid. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for having me.